Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Reginal Drummer, the Peopleologist, coming to you live on this powerful Sunday evening uh, with another episode of We Are Ready. Remember, if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready. I encourage you to join us in the chat, like, share, and subscribe over here on our Square Mile Media Atlanta channel. A lot of supporting shows. So definitely you want to share this with your family, your friends, and your loved ones. One of the things that we have to focus on, and we have to ask ourselves, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you really ready? Are you prepared? Are you being aware of what's going on around you at all times? When we look at the war, the W.A.R, the acronym is war, we are ready. And believe it or not, whether we admit it or not, we are in a battle. People are preparing for battle. Uh, and I'm not saying you have to be violent. I'm not saying you have to go out and arm yourself, but you got to be ready. You have to prepare yourself. You have to be aware of your surroundings. I recently was talking to some family members, and this was back in the latter part of April when we were at a mall here in Atlanta. We were talking about what would happen if one of the questions they asked about, one of my nieces asked me about a shooting that happened at a mall. I said, well, you have to be ready. What are you going to do? Are you prepared? And we have to think like that any and every time we go out. How do you prepare yourself? We have to think about where are we going? What are we going to be doing? We have to dress for survival and prepare for survival. One of the things I did share with one of my nieces and one of my nephews, I don't think you should be out there with, I know it's hot the summer, but if you're out there with slippers and house shoes on, you will become a victim easily, even if your car breaks down with gas shortages. I was recently out and a young guy ran out of gas. He was trying to push his car with flip flops. Figure that. So these are some things that we have to be thinking about during this time period. Plus, we're in a situation. Over the last couple of weeks, there have been a lot of mass shootings, a lot of mass shootings. They say since the first of the year, there have been over 240 mass shootings here in America. Over 240. Okay? That's a lot of people getting killed since January. Recently, we had the Buffalo shooting where 14 people, I think 10 people were killed. Texas, we had 21 people, young people especially, got killed. Oklahoma, the other day, we had a guy go in with a back problem, kill the doctor and the nurse and himself, I believe. Also, there have been a lot of shootings at venues like clubs. Chattanooga, Tennessee, 14 people shot. Now, these are behavior trails that people are leaving. Either they're crazy, they're insane, or they just snap. Either they're crazy, they're insane, or they just snap. And we're going to clean that up a little later because we're going to be talking about mental health. And when you think about mental health, with all this stuff that's going on, there has to be something, whether it's stress, fear, bullying, or whatever, causing people to act up because we've got a rise in people acting up. And then out of that, that moves and motivate other people to want to do something about it. Uh, and we're talking about mass shootings, but we also have a rise in domestic violence, bullying, and things of that nature. But we're going to take a deep breath and bring our special guest on because I can run my mouth and just throw it out there, but she always brings us some solutions, some things that we can do to cope with a lot of this stuff that's going on, whether it be high gas prices, people losing their jobs, people in a big frustrated type atmosphere, you know, and we have to do something. And I think last month was Mental Health Month, so we're transitioning right into it. Mental Health Month, we had all those shootings, not discarding the other homicides and different things that have happened. But this evening, Miss Thomas, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, drummer. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's good to have you. We have to let you introduce yourself and reintroduce yourself to some. You always come on board to give us a professional opinion on a lot of these things that's happening within our community. Yeah, we have to be ready. We have to stay ready, but there's a lot to cope with. So maybe you can give them a little bit of your background, what you do, and how to get in touch with you, and things of that nature.
Most definitely. So, again, my name is Sha'ria Thomas, and I am a licensed mental health therapist. I'm a certified life coach and a lifestyle consultant, meaning that I help my clients, I help others, the community, to live a happier and healthier and more peacefully and joyful life. And in getting to that road, it's a process, and it's a process of really building on personal development. And that's what I help with my clients, whether it is helping them to better manage their mental health, whether it is actually just transitions in life or literally a mental health diagnosis, as well as life transitions and helping people with their career or building more on their relationships, significant parts of their life, so that they can be a better person and really contribute more to this world.
Mm, okay, okay. That's a beautiful snapshot of you and what you do.
Well,
Uh,
thank you.
one of the things we were just talking about, the status of America right now.
Hmm.
Uh, People are, it's getting hot. And when it gets hot, people tend to have a lot of, activities anyway. But there seems to be just a resurgence of violence, especially shootings and things of that nature. Uh, I was just in my hometown, they had a Stop the Violence rally, and I know a couple of other places that they're doing it, just trying to curb down on violence. Here in America, uh, I think they said we got more guns than any other. We have more guns than some countries.
Mm.
The average American, if you without the armed forces, you can take away the Army, the Navy. We just had Memorial Day, but you can take away the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force, and the regular citizens in America got enough weapons to take over a country.
Wow,
That's a lot of guns,
that it is.
and I know guns don't kill people. People do, but the mental state that we currently in, uh, I know people are dealing with certain things. We see some of these shootings and the aftermath of some of that. Uh, do you have any advice for people? Have you had any experience having to deal with people that have gone through a traumatic experience, like a shooting or something like that, or some type of major big trauma where either they survive, or even when people hear it over and over and over again, it affects them.
Very true. Just as you said, people hearing it over and over again, that's called vicarious trauma. And yes, I do specialize in working with people who have been affected by trauma. And so trauma can be more so on the side that you're talking about, where it may be violence. Um, but trauma can also be emotional, it can be verbal. And so many people can be traumatized in different ways. And so, yes, that is something that I have and do work with people who may suffer from it so that they can process it, heal from what they've experienced that has traumatized them. Now, in terms of recently, of just as you talk about the uproar of just the climate as we look at the world society and just being so accessible to guns, weapons that can be destructive to others. Um, of course, on a level to take it more personal to where we are able to manage ourselves so that we can better deal with situations where conflict may happen. Is, of course, there are elements that are going to be so much out of your control, but how can we better build a space to where we're able to deal with conflict? um, Now, kind of, on a note of when it comes to someone that may even live in an environment that ongoing they may experience violence, see it, hear it, maybe in their own household where there's domestic violence from parents, or even that it may happen to that person, is number one, how can we build better, healthier boundaries? Understanding what is that space of first, what is a boundaries? How can we create some limits, some rules as to what is healthy for ourselves and how to connect with other people? And that is something we don't learn as just ongoing, especially if it's in an environment where one may have grown up, where it's just the norm to see it, to experience it, and not so much the vicariously where we see it on TV, but literally where someone may have it in their household or just around them. And we start in that space of learning what are your boundaries, and not allowing others to have a level of respect for oneself first, and of course still respecting the other person. And I think in the society that we live in now, it's unfortunate, but when it comes to values and creating more of a value system, that's been lost, unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
And if we can regain that space of first starting on an individual level of what are your values. So that's something I would start out as challenging just our listeners, um, ourselves, of being more in touch with what do you value, what's important to you, so that you can connect that, and really allow yourself to move more in your own life, so you keep that level of respect for yourself, but also the other person. I say that big in terms of self and the other person, because unfortunately, this life that we live in can be very self serving, unfortunately.
Mm.
Um, and so, if even as I want to kind of put it to our children, because children and teens, they're so much bombarded with what they see. And so, if as not just their own parents, but even community members, even their own neighbors, if we can really come together with helping to build more of that strength when it comes to values, then we have more of that level of respect to look out for that person that we may not know, but we see something is going on and we're willing to step in. So,
Mm.
knowing what your values are, starting to get more clear on that, and knowing really, in terms of developing that level of self-respect as well as respect for others.
We got a question. It
Okay.
says, I haven't been directly impacted by violence, but I was in a store after the Buffalo shooting and I found myself being conscious of the lack of exits.
Mm.
Uh, hmm, uh, is that like anxiety from that, or what is that mostly?
So what they're saying is, so I can be clear, is that um, they were in a store and there was an actual shooting, and just the sense of the fear of their safety is what I hear, because they couldn't find a way out of that space. So yes, that would be anxiety, because any
Mhm.
sense of discomfort, and there's a fear of safety, where our safety is at harm, it's only natural to feel anxious. When we think about anxiety, um, first, it's a normal emotion to have, to experience, and it will come up actually as a good mechanism to show us that, hey, something's not right or something's going on. And
Mhm.
another boundary would be to listen to your emotion. In moments where things don't feel safe, listen to that sense of, why am I feeling this level of discomfort? What's going on there? Really building in more that level of what you said in terms of that awareness. We really want to build more on what that level of awareness is for ourselves.
I guess it's not being over paranoid or just being conscious, in that person's point, they were in a store, and they, after the Buffalo shooting, they kind of got more mindful of what their setting was like. You go in a grocery store, you look up, and you say, "Man, there's only one exit out of here." Uh, where in the past, you find yourself not thinking about things like that. You just go in the store, and you don't think about, you know, something going down in the store like a shooting.
Most
Uh,
definitely.
uh, and now you don't know who's in a store with weapons. That Now, some people are trained, but then some people are very emotional, and situations can get out of control real quick,
Mhm.
especially if somebody's overly anxious,
Yes.
and they might think that you're a threat. I wouldn't want somebody to think that I'm a threat just because I walked into a store and was looking kind of weird at the signs. I don't, but does anxiety create a lot of paranoia in people?
It can create a level of paranoia. When we look at anxiety, again, the sense of what's healthy, what's not healthy. And when you say about being over anxious, a level of anxiety again is healthy because it can help you to be more aware. Just as that person, they're more conscious now, they're more paying attention to their surroundings, they're more aware of that now. So understanding, when does anxiety become a problem? We can look at
Mm,
it that way. When does anxiety become dysfunctional for someone? And so feeling uncomfortable, feeling a sense of lack of safety, that can make one feel anxious, even in our bodies where we feel more tensed, maybe tensed in our stomach, clenching your jaws, your heart is racing, your blood pressure may rise, the temperature of your body may increase, you may feel flush. Those are all physical examples of what how we may feel when we become anxious. Now, and all still in a level of still feeling normal anxiety, still,
mm,
because your body, you're listening to that emotion. This is what's going on. The body is making you aware of what's going on, even when maybe consciously you may not be much aware of it. Now, when it becomes dysfunctional and when it becomes a problem is in everyday life, where that those same physical symptoms come up. And it
mm,
may be where I'm just at work and I start to feel that way. And it's happening today, tomorrow, the next day, by me simply going to work. Now,
mm,
that's when it's starting to affect your level of functioning, to where I'm having a problem focusing or concentrating because my body is responding in a way that I'm anxious. I'm worried about what is going on in the world. How are my children? Is there going to be a shooting at the school? So those are some anxiety provoking thoughts, worryful thoughts that if it becomes to where it's ongoing and it lasts for say about 2 weeks at a time or more, and those symptoms that I said are happening, then we're getting to that space where it's no longer healthy because of how it's affecting your functioning level. And so that's where we want to be mindful of, how can I set, again, how can I set a boundary so that in the world, the external world of all that's going on, and as you said, being prepared for it,
right.
that you don't get lost in all of the fear-based thinking of what's going on, but really, what can I do? How can I keep my own self safe, my family safe, but at the same time still live a happy, joyous life and still be willing to, if needed, help and assist. But it doesn't mean that I can't still live in a way that is satisfactory at the same time, where there's so many experiences around me that seem to be fairly chaotic. And
Mm,
that definitely comes in the sense of gaining better healthy boundaries and how we cope
Mm.
with situations and life experiences.
Is there a professional word? I know we said people snapping, they
Hmm.
going insane, they acting crazy. We living in a polarized country, and there are a lot of people that believe their way is the only way. Well, when
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to some of these hot topics, whether it be abortion,
Hmm.
immigration, when you look at a lot of these shootings that recently, even the guy that killed his doctor, he was still having reoccurring back pains rather than deal with it or come to another uh, you know conclusion. He went in and shot the doctor, the nurse, and ended up killing himself. The guy in Buffalo, he was disgruntled over what he thought were replacement black people replacing him. He's not
Hmm.
going to have a particular space in life. I don't know what the guy that shot up the school and killed the little kids. Maybe he had a problem with immigration, but these people have some real strong beliefs,
Yes.
and if you go against those beliefs, they have a tendency to go violent. Uh, uh, is there a particular name for that type of disorder other than just crazy, snapping, insane? Is there, I guess, a clinical name for it? That
Okay.
behavior?
Well, in my field, crazy is not the language that we use.
Okay. Thank you
Now,
for cleaning
in,
that up.
insanity would be that we do the same thing again and again and want different results. That would be insane to do the same thing and think that something will change if you have not made the effort to do it. Now, as it relates to those three different incidents that you stated, there definitely had to be some form of mental illness, whether going back in their history, knowing what their background is, if that information is ever released, if they had a pre-existing diagnosis. To say what that would specifically be, we cannot say. um, to Because as a therapist, as a licensed professional therapist, where I diagnose people with
Mhm.
mental disorders, emotional disorders, even a personality disorder, we have to have that background and that assessment. So to prejudge someone and say, okay, well, they may be a psychopath, we don't
Mhm.
know that. We don't know that unless we know their history. But obviously, yes, there was a disconnection from everyday life for them to think that they could take another life and some their own life. So there definitely was some type of mental illness occurring.
Mhm. Wow. Because now, and I know when we say mental illness, in the case of the guy that shot up the uh, the people in Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
he wrote a thesis. He wrote 180 pages, and just from my little small point of view, I'm like, you got to be kind of smart to write 180 pages. I mean, he doggone near wrote a book about what he was doing, how he was doing. I'm pretty sure he's going to claim some type of mental uh, instability or something. But uh, these uh, when people uh, and then we unfortunately we have to be around them. I've been in situations where stuff did jump off kind of crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and I was blessed that they handled it, right then and there. Uh, there was some adequate security there, but in some places uh, there's no security, or if the security is there, they generally an older person that's just trying to make a couple dollars, and they might not be able to fend off a violent attacker. And case in point, even with the school, you know, the police were they said they were scared to go inside the building. We expect the police to just run in there and take one for the team. But a lot of these guys are they have to go home every day. I just had a conversation with a policeman, and he had to take a break because he said he was having people harass him. I mean, in conversation about his ability, or police officers in general, position to be able to go in and handle a situation.
Okay.
Because we expect the police to go in there like a fireman. We expect the fireman to go in and put the fire out. We don't expect the fireman to kind of nut up and freeze up. We don't expect the military to just nut up and not go in and take over a country and shoot people. But in all fields, people freeze up. Teachers freeze up when it comes down. They have an anxiety attack, can't teach, and doctors can't doctor. People freeze up. But let me see. We got another question. There's reports suicide. Let's see this. There's reports suicide. Thank you. 3rd Street down. There's reports suicide is increasing in Black youth. Any ideas on how to identify depression or other mental health issues with children and teens?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, let's answer both of those. So I make sure that we can touch on what youth we're talking about, Drummer, as well as this new question coming up as to how to identify depression in children and teens. Okay. So we will get back to that. But first, let's piggyback on what you were discussing about just the sense of professionals and how, in some layman's terms, that's where someone may say that they may snap, may freeze, certain words that, let's look at it in terms of our stress response. And that's what it is how do we respond to stress in situations that create distress for us. And so, in terms of a police officer who we would think are trained to know how to deal with, we call crisis resolutions, crisis interventions, and ideally that would be great, but they are also human. And in us being human, if we never learn how to shift in terms of our stress response, that when we deal with something that makes us feel stressed, automatically, as human beings, it's only human nature that we can go into fight, flight, or freeze. Unless we learn the relaxation response. And unfortunately, many do not have that skill. Now, that is an area in terms of police reform, even myself, that I consider to bring more of what really is their background of what they learn. But that is exactly it, that one may go into freeze because their heightened level of stress, they don't know how to deal with it. And so automatically, meaning the automatic response system just goes there. And that is why, even as you said, in terms of the man that went and killed the doctor and himself, in that moment, he went into more of a fight response out of the anger he may have been experiencing. So he reacted instead of responding. So that's what we're looking at in terms of how can we better know how to deal with when I'm feeling stress? What do I do? That's the coping that unfortunately some do not have. And that is the extreme that we see when it comes to the violence and the discord that is displayed on TV. So learning more of how to cope. If we connect that in terms of, this is also Men's Health Awareness Month, and that connecting to our physical health too, is how are you taking care of that mind and body, that connection there, because that's very big. Of we can relax ourselves about what we do every single day to help ourselves to calm down, and building those skills every day. Whether it is, for some, it might be that exercise, moving, walking, yoga, even cardio can be helpful for some people to. It raises up in terms of your endorphins, but then it can give out a release and help a person to calm down. So building more of those coping skills,
Mm.
so we get out of that fight or flight or freeze response, but more into relaxation response. And then we're not so reactive, but responsive and less likely to be violent.
Okay. And
So,
and
yes.
I guess that's a great way of looking at it, because we expect somebody else to over here we always say, ain't nobody coming. Okay.
Mm,
And I
mm-hmm,
hate to throw that out, just kind of be like that. But a lot of times, and there were some people in that school shooting in Texas that took upon themselves to go into school and get their kids because maybe the police had a protocol, but
mm-hmm.
as they circulated throughout, they make those police officers look like they dropped the ball. And I think down in Florida one time they had a school shooting where the police officers didn't go in. It didn't last an hour like in Texas, but they didn't go inside the school either. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like you say, we expect, and we even in the military, there have been people that either dropped their guns and ran.
Yes, right.
First time somebody shot at them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, people get trained to go into places and spaces, and they can't handle it. Firemen that go inside a fire and drop the hose. They got names for them.
Yes.
And in a sometimes in a male dominated society in the past, they dealt with those guys accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't nice. It wasn't from a professional level. Either they jumped on them, beat them up, or made sure they was the first one in the thing. They either threw them into the heat. But uh, with today, you don't know what type of person you got when you bring people into situations. And then going back to the depression, a lot of our young people look like, because believe it or not, a lot of those officers were young officers.
Mm-hmm.
So the younger population, not to just put it out like that. I got no data to back it up, but look like the younger population might
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit more apt to be depressed. Young men.
Right.
We got young black men. I was recently in a store, and a young brother was going around the store just yelling all kind of obscenities out. He was just frustrated, just you know, and and being an older male, I was like, I didn't know how to approach him, because I didn't want to do nothing crazy to me. I couldn't get out the stove quick enough. But uh, this depression that we see in young people, because you see
Mm-hmm.
young people, man, y'all got more stuff than we ever had. You
Yes.
got communication devices, you got opportunities, but yet a lot of, and especially a lot of black males, some teenagers, young ones, look like they got the problems of a man since they were 3 years old or something. They really, I don't know if it's because of the absence of fathers or what, but they under a lot of depression, and the white ones too, because you look at a lot of these white guys that's 18, 19 years old, going in there, got killed his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But in young people, uh, do you notice in your profession a lot of young people, or is this because they're being diagnosed? And we didn't do that back in my day. Nobody, wrote down if I was feeling bad. But today, a lot of young black men are very depressed
Mm-hmm.
and angry.
Right, right. So, in terms of, do I see that? Yes, we live in a generation now to where we're more likely to be willing to remove the level and the stigma of mental health. And so more are apt to be assessed that that actually is diagnosed and a mental health disorder is made aware of. And that wasn't happening maybe even a decade ago, 20 years ago, ongoing. And so it definitely is more prominent now, especially since recent years, COVID actually, just 2021, that more teens and children have been impacted with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and depression because of, we can see that in terms of lifestyle changes, that they were more apt to be in the household, that there was less structure because parents didn't know how to participate in terms of that schooling process, and so there
Mm-hmm.
was no outlet, and there was no level of skills taught, unless there was a level of intervening and helping them in terms of providing them with counseling and any other resources and tutoring of that nature. So recently, yes, there has been more of a, I don't have the actual stats, but I definitely will provide them later to your audience in terms of that, um, the younger population being impacted. Now, going back to that question of how can we identify depression in teens and children, you made a distinctive connection there, Drummer, when you said about depression and anger. And normally, the anger may be seen more so than the depression for teens and children because they don't know how to express it. They don't know how to verbalize it. They may not have the language. And so they may act out their behavior of what they literally do. A child who may have been doing well in school, but now that they are feeling depressed, their grades are dropping. They don't want to go to school. So they may be feeling a bit more anxious, but they're not verbalizing it. It's in their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
They may be isolating to where they don't want to, say, hang out with their friends anymore. They're not doing what they used to do. They don't want to be around the family. Those are some signs in terms of, hey, they may be feeling depressed. What's going on there? Um, some indicators may also be, I put it really back on school because
Mm-hmm.
at that age, they're so significantly, that is a part of their life, large part of their life. So what's going on in terms of school versus home that has changed? And so that can be a big indicator as to not just, oh, they're acting up. It's easy to say they're acting up versus what's going on behind that, and being willing to look a little bit deeper or to get that assessment, seek the help, speak to even the school counselor at that point to find out if the child might be depressed. And that's definitely a good indicator to start.
Mm-hmm. You know, in a lot of these uh, recent shootings, uh, there's been somewhat of a history of bad behavior. In case in point, I think the guy in Buffalo, I think he was talking about shooting up the school when he was like 14, 15 years old.
Mm,
And I think they said he got some counseling, and either they didn't diagnose it or didn't see it, or he hid it well, or something. Uh, he was able to, and many others have, and was still able to get a gun. You know, uh, where a lot of people, it's hard for some people to get a gun, but you figure a 18-year-old or a 19-year-old to get a gun,
mm-hmm,
and and I know we talk about mental health, but you're smart enough to get a gun, and I'm not talking about a cheap gun,
mm-hmm,
not a little a little Glock you pick up on the neighborhood for about $100. You know, these guys getting big weapons, AK-47s, things of that nature, and then going buying body armor and all that. And I know another question would be: are these video games uh, contributing a lot to the anger and depression of some of these young people because they get so deep into them? Back in the day, we didn't have like video games. You had to go outside and either hit somebody playing football or dodgeball or something. But now, they do it all in these games, and a lot of these games tell you everything you need to go out and do bodily harm to somebody. So do those games contribute to some of this behavior with young people, violent behavior?
I would say that we can create recognizing that video games and anything of a violent nature, if a child that their brain is still developing, and our brain is still developing up to the age of 26, it's
Wow.
very impressionable. And so if I'm seeing this, if I spend 2 to 3 hours or more playing a game or watching a show or something that I'm seeing on a daily basis, that is definitely being absorbed into the psyche, our mind. And so to say that they are influenced by it, there is a level of influence. Now it's on an individual basis, because also we also have resiliency factors, meaning that there might be some counteracting factors. So to say just that, all teens or all children or even some adults that can really get addicted to video games, yes, most definitely. But that level of influence can affect others, but it's on an individual basis. But as we look at teens and teenagers, because they are so impressionable and they do need more protective, we'll call them protective factors that can help to strengthen um, just their level of having ways of healthy connection with themselves, with others, knowing how to cope, how to deal with situations. Being exposed to violence in the form of a video game, yes, that can definitely influence a child or a teen.
Well, is there in dealing with the mental health? And I know a lot of these companies, like as an adult, I downloaded a video game. I think it was Sniper or something like that. But I had to back away from it because I found myself, and I'm 60 years old. I'm getting the game, and I'm really getting into shooting these people. So I can imagine what it does to a younger person that hadn't developed that level of distinguishing between what's real and unreal. So I guess the question would be: should some of these companies be held accountable to get some type of therapy for a lot of these people? That just like alcohol companies had to pony up money to help people with alcohol abuse. Gambling entities have to do a certain amount of money, pony up money for gamblers. So I'm thinking some of these gun companies, some of these gamers companies, violent games, for putting products out there that can be, they can get in your mind. I mean, I consider myself a pretty sane individual, but if I played them games every day, I might want to go out and shoot somebody. If nobody intervened or put some type, maybe I know parents have a certain amount of responsibility, because when you look at a lot of these young people, they playing these games as early as 9, 10 years old.
Exactly.
And some kids, they play the games and they might not get caught up so into it. So, but is there a certain amount of responsibility that these companies have when it comes down to putting this type of these tools in the hands of young people? Because I think in both of those shooters, the school shooter and the
Mm-hmm.
one in Buffalo, they were active gamers, and I forgot the name of the game that both of them played.
You're right, exactly. I would say this, and this is more on a personal note and not more therapeutically, because when it comes to holding therapeutically is the just the sense of us taking more accountability as on a societal level, on an individual level, as a community. And so it's more of a joint effort. Um, but personally, I would say yes, um, that a level of responsibility. But how does that come about? Um, and that goes into what we do as a community, as individuals, as parents, that we're advocating of what we allow, in terms of us going back in terms of building more of that strength as just overall health, mental well-being, is we have to know our limits. That's a healthy boundary in itself, knowing what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and more on an individual level of what are we bringing into our homes, what are we allowing ourselves to view, what are we allowing ourselves to engage in, um, on more of a regular basis. Like even you said, drummer, you're a very mature man of a stature that I know you're a very intelligent person, but we can still be influenced. And then we're taking in something day after day after day. We become influenced by what we're taking in, what we're absorbing through our senses, through our eyes, through our nose, all of those things. Um, we are absorbing that in. So having more of knowing what our limits are on an individual basis is very significant, and in having that level of responsibility.
And I guess knowing your limits. We're looking at games, but also television,
There we
because
go.
when something happens, it keeps telling us over and over to be scared, to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we had a question where I think the lady, she asked her son dealing with some of these anxieties, and I think you said it earlier. Is the exercise still good to release some of this anxiety and frustration that we get built up, whether it's coming from games or whether it's coming from media? Uh, People have a tendency to just get frustrated now
Mm-hmm.
easily,
Most definitely.
and
Is
their frustration comes out in a way that they hurt other people. So does the exercise help, or does that get you more frustrated?
does exercise help? Most definitely. Now, to the level of how much, is on an individual basis. First, of what exercise does. Let's just look at it in terms of the basics of the body needs to move. The body
Mm,
needs a level of stress, healthy stress. So when we're stagnant, when we are in an office job or sitting all the time, that goes against the natural flow of what our physical body needs.
mm,
Uh, Exercise releases endorphins, which are considered to be our happy hormones. So physiologically, what's going on when we're moving our body is a healthy thing, and it's a release. So it's only beneficial in how we are coping that it can help. Now, to only have exercise as a way to cope, um, for some is not enough.
mm.
That's why we have talk therapy. That's why we have to help in talk therapy. We have to help others to learn other ways to cope other than just exercising. So yes, but also we want to build up that toolbox to have multiple ways of being able to cope.
Oh, here's another question from the audience out there. At one time, insurance companies didn't cover or pay for mental health services
Mhm.
the same as medical. Is that getting better? Or companies starting to pay for mental health treatment?
Yes, more insurance companies like your major commercial, Aetna, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Humana, they do cover. And even as a therapist myself, I accept major commercial insurance companies. There's becoming more of an awareness of first the need, that we need to, as the saying goes, get a checkup from the neck up. Just if we look at it physiologically of how we're made, the brain is at the top, so it's the executive functioning of everything else, and so we want to keep that healthy so that the rest of the body can function and is appropriate in terms of being able to operate in this optimal way. So most definitely it's becoming more aware that this need is necessary, not just a luxury as it was thought of in the past.
And and I know for the sake of putting your number up there, Ms. Thomas, for the sake of a lot of people out there, uh, the and all of us uh, can fall in the category where we need some type of mental health counseling. You
Mhm.
know, I know sometimes as men we get depressed. Older men, uh, you can have a health issue or challenge or
Mhm.
just surviving. You know, when people look at their money, they start getting stressed out, you know, and feeling bad, getting depressed. And before you know it, you can uh, compromise yourself. There are people, they either gain weight or lose weight. I had a brother that just got so depressed he wouldn't even eat,
Right.
you
Mhm.
know, and there's just different things. But are I guess are there some special hotlines and services that you you have that you want to share with us or anything like that?
Well, one definitely is 1-800 suicide, is a free anonymous number to call. That is something that even though one may not literally be suicidal, but just may need someone, a professional, confidential, anonymous, meaning you don't give your information, who you truly are, but being able to even obtain resources, and in that moment that they may just need to speak to someone. And so
Mhm.
that's a free number that they can contact. Behavioral health link um, is, I don't have that number right here in front of me, but if one was to look up behavioral health link online, that is for a free assessment. And people can contact that number if they think that for themselves or a family member or anyone else may need assistance. They can be assessed and obtain the resources that they need through Behavioral Health Link. Even through my own company, I, and we are actually hiring LAPCs, that means licensed associate professionals, as well as licensed professional counselors, because there is a need, there's more of a demand. So building, and the more that we have to help the community, the more that we can be in a state of first the level of awareness, so we help ourselves and we can be able to spread that and help others. So I'm glad you all have the website definitely there, and we are providing free assessments for the next week. And we also provide free consults to help others as well. And not just on your mental health, but also your physical, whether it is your nutrition, and even assessing and giving you the resources so that you can be able to move forward in terms of creating a better wellness plan for yourself.
Mm. Uh, That's a beautiful things. And we just look at, I know we focused a lot on the mental, and we talked a lot about, parts where people hurting and shooting each other, but also when it comes down to relationships, just regular relationships, uh, there's uh, uh, there's there's help out there for people, for couples, for different ones, and so we're not out here by ourselves. You
Mm-hmm.
got help,
Most definitely.
uh, and if you can recognize uh, within your family. I know a lot of times people say, well, I don't like to get in nobody's business, but when people start acting up, whether it's a domestic violence situation or shooting, everybody, somebody's gonna come up and say, well, I recognize he had a problem,
Mm-hmm.
or she had a problem, and so some of these incidents they leave clues, all the time. uh, yeah, thank you there, Third Street. Y'all have to continue to like, share, and subscribe out here to
Yes.
us, and stay ready at all times. I know we can't prepare for everything, but the stronger your mind is, uh, the better everything is. Because your mind keeps your body, you know, thinking about keeping it in shape. Your physical body, you need a strong mind and physical body to survive what's coming our way, because a lot's coming, and we have to be ready at all times. I know we put it out there, we are ready, and sometimes people say, "Well, drummer, you can't prepare for everything." I still encourage people to pray, fast, meditate, strategize, and but come up with a game plan for yourself, your survival, and protect your mind at all times,
Most
because
definitely.
there's so much coming to it. I mean, we getting bombarded more and more. I was at a church the other day, and it was uh, well, a couple months ago, and there's a battle between two people, probably because they hadn't been to church in a while and all that type of stuff. But they was getting into a battle
Mm.
about something as simple as a computer program. This
Oh,
was
wow.
just something keeping up with. They just got frustrated. They almost came to blows. And these not young women. these grandmamas in the organization. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are frustrated. A lot of people are have a lot of buildup. So we have to really try to control or manage our thoughts and our what's going on in our mind. But is there any final things you want to just share with them real quick,
I
Ms.
do.
Thomas?
I do. First, I did find that hotline, that access number that I was telling you about for behavioral health links. So I do want to provide that. Now, that's for
Okay.
any type of mental health, also substance abuse, even
Yes.
disability. This is a phone number that one can call, and it's 1-800 715 4225. 1-800 715 4225. And just to close out, is overall, in terms of what we talked about and looking at all that's going on in the world as it will continue to, and just the purpose of this show being ready is how can we be ready at looking at how can I be the change. We have to start with ourselves, essentially. And what is that one? I'll just give it to our listeners at this moment. What is just one thing that you commit to do that's different that you have in the past that you can contribute, whether it is to help yourself, your family, your community, to where you're bringing a sense of more peace, less conflict within
Mhm.
your life, within your community? What is that one thing that you're willing to do? And start that now, even if it is by building and strengthening your own healthy boundaries for your own life, discussing what are values with your children, with your partner, with your husband, your wife, your siblings. But start somewhere. and that can continue to compound and build from there.
Okay, like that. That's strong. That's definitely strong. We definitely appreciate you sharing those wonderful golden nuggets with the audience this evening.
Thanks.
For everybody out there, uh, definitely you want to keep yourself ready at all times. And I'll close out putting this out there. Uh, Over the next 100 days, I know we just got into the month of June, and believe it or not, we're at the halfway point of the year, and we've been doing a couple of challenges every 100 days. I think the first challenge was to spend at least 10 minutes a day with me, myself, and I. Just 10 minutes a day. You'd be surprised how much it's going to make you feel, how better it's going to make you feel. Uh, Number two, uh, drink some water. You know, we say over here some warm water. If you drink some warm water in the morning, at least 8 to 16 gallons, that's going to get your blood to move, and you flush a lot of toxins out of you and that type of thing. We also encourage number three, walk, crawl, hop, or run at least a mile a day, just movement. We've had people to get off diabetes medication, high blood pressure medication, a whole lot of things just by exercising. And then another discipline exercise, the next 100 days, save $1 a day. You know, I know sometimes people say, drumming $100 in 100 days ain't gonna do a lot for me. But we've had people to either double up on it, started saving $10 a day, and we've even had people that teamed up with other people to save collectively $10 a day. They were able to save something like $10,000 in 100 days. Also, support a black or brown business over the next 100 days, and also get in touch with your family members. If you don't have 100 people in your family over the next 100 days, family, friends, loved ones, just give them a call and see how they're doing. You'd be surprised what that does for yourself, for your family, and your community. A lot of people are just one phone call away. You think about some people, if they hear one person's voice, that might save them from a situation, uh, or might motivate them to want to do a little bit more about a particular situation. But anyway, these are some things that we want to put out there, and I hope that you keep yourself ready, stay ready at all times. That way, you don't have to get ready. Prepare yourself, continue to pray, fast, meditate, and strategize. Stay aware of your surroundings. Stay alert. Do some drills with your family. Uh, there are a lot of things happening. We're going to be talking about a lot of that, I think, in the upcoming week. Survival 101. We're going to throw that back in there. Uh, you do not want to be the poster child uh, for being a victim. With that being said, this is Reginald Drummer, the Peopleologist, and I encourage you to like, share, and continue to subscribe to our Square Mile Media channel over here. So take care. Until next week, stay ready. Stay ready.